Making headlines tonight, a new effort to address the crime situation in Barbados. Classes at the Deighton Griffith Secondary School cancelled after an incident there. Barbados welcomes news the IMF is making over $600 million available to the country. And coming up in sports, the Windies suffer at the bat of Labuschagne once again.
Broadcasting from our studios in the Pine St. Michael, this is CBC NewsNight, starting now.
I'm Shane Jones, leading the news at 7. Authorities have taken another major step to address the crime situation in Barbados. The latest effort involves the Barbados Police Service and the Barbados Defence Force. Crystal Hoyt has that story.
There have been 41 murders in Barbados this year compared to 28 last year. 31 of them involved firearms. As a result of the rising crime, the Barbados Police Service has formed a new unit with the Barbados Defence Force.
We combine our resources, and not only these two organizations, also members who work at the borders within our country are also partners in this operation. And mind you, members of the public are also part and parcel of what we're hoping to achieve. And today marks the official launch of Operation Restore Order.
The operation is made up of 86 police personnel and an unlimited number of BDF personnel. Already, the unit has been able to solve a total of 4 murders, arrest 13 people, conduct 337 vehicle searches, 1,098 personal searches, seized a number of firearms and 67 rounds of ammunition. On the maritime side, they've confiscated $2.3 million in drugs. And while Commissioner Boyce assures the public people will not be targeted without cause, he's asked the public for their support.
You're going to see police officers and their support BDF personnel moving around. I want to encourage persons that when we are moving around, do not get in our way, do not intervene, do not hamper, do not make the job more difficult for the officers than it should be.
And has sent a stern warning to those operating outside of the law.
My message also to the criminals: we are serious about this operation. We intend to go after you. We intend to take these guns out of persons' hands. We intend to come after you 24/7. Day and night.
The police commissioner says it will be a 3-month operation in the first instance. Crystal Hoyt, CBC News.
Thanks, Crystal. Prime Minister Mia Amor-Motley suggests Barbados has been impacted by its failure to take early action given the age groups of those involved in crime. She says the country is already facing the consequences of children leaving school with no jobs and no involvement in post-secondary institutions. This, she says, caused her distress on assuming office.
We are now, regrettably, reaping the consequences of it as a nation. And it is up to us to stem it and to ensure that there is no further repetition of it. The majority of victims of crime in this country are between the ages of 25 and 35. Let me give you context. When I made that statement in 2018, those people would have been between the ages of 21 to 30. And if I go back to the last decade, those people in 2008 would have been between the ages of 11 to 20.
The Prime Minister's comments came at the official opening of 3 new buildings at the Nightingale's Children's Home located in Black Rock, St. Michael, and the unveiling of 3 plaques. The buildings, the Crawford Contact Family Centre, Auntie Brewer's Early Years Centre, and Shelley's Cottage were named in honour of a former resident, along with 2 officials who contributed to the development of the Nightingale's home. They were refurbished and furnished by the Barbados Children's Trust in partnership with the Child Care Board and the Ministry of People Empowerment. During the event, Ms. Motley revealed two pieces of legislation. The new Child Protection Bill and the Child Justice Bill are coming soon.
These two pieces of legislation will finally move us from the 19th century into the 21st century. And they are critical to being able not just to change the law, but to be the basis for a change of culture. And because they are the basis for a change of culture, it's not going to happen simply by the passage of legislation. It is going to happen when we take the approaches that we need to take and to engage in the level of parental education as the very basis for all that we must do to protect and to nurture our children.
Barbados has welcomed the International Monetary Fund is making over $600 million available to the country. $113 million US is being provided through the extended fund facility, in addition to $189 million US through the Resilience and Sustainability Trust. Prime Minister Mia Motley is pleased Barbados is among the first in the world to benefit from the recently established trust. The funds are being made available to help Barbados to maintain and strengthen macroeconomic stability, support the structural reform agenda, and increase resilience to climate change. Ms. Motley has singled out Senior Economic Advisor Dr. Kevin Greenidge, who accompanied her at a function at the Nightingale Children's Home and recognized his achievements.
For the last 4.5 years, I can say without fear of contradiction that we would not have been able to manage where we have gotten as a country without this young man, Dr. Kevin Greenidge, who has been selfless. To understand, for those who don't know you now, I want the kids to know you and see you. But when you're done, you're going to talk to them. And who has shown us that there is nothing, young boys and girls, there is nothing that can stop you from being the best that you can be, not just in Barbados, but globally.
Specialists in the area of biodiversity are happy about the new IMF funding through the Resilience and Sustainability Trust. Well, joining us live now to discuss the issue of climate resilience is Dr. Kirk Douglas, the Director for the Center for Biosecurity Studies at UWI Cave Hill. Good evening, Dr. Douglas, and thank you for joining me.
Hi, good evening, Shane. Good afternoon to Barbados as well. Thanks.
Okay, so let's get into it. What areas of climate resilience and sustainability can these funds help to bolster?
Well, I think before you speak to in terms of the actual expenditure of the funds is in terms of the strategy. What is the high-level strategy that you want to employ to tackle the impacts of climate change? And I think from an economic policy perspective, what we have to look at is the impacts of trade and tourism, which are two of the bedrock activities in terms of our economy, and how these are actually also simultaneously vulnerabilities to our ecosystems and also to climate in terms of the climate impact, in terms of the emissions, and what is the best way strategically can we place these funds to the efficient use so that we can curb emissions, so that we can reduce waste. Because when you think of tourism generates a level of waste, and so therefore when you're building out your tourism industry, you should link the economic policies also to waste management, because on average, some of the studies that have been published has stated that about 0.6 kilograms of waste is generated per tourist, and we have about 3 times the number of tourists that we do have residents. So when you have the influx of tourists coming into the country, of course it is welcome. However, you also have to look at the back end in vulnerability, and then how can you strategically place these funds to use so that you can hedge your bets and also reduce the negative impact of tourism, but also simultaneously generate new economic activity Because the other thing about waste is that you can actually flip that paradigm, and it's no longer onerous, it's no longer a burden, but it can actually generate revenue and also stimulate new economic activity, because we've heard several times persons mention about broadening the economic base and also generating diversity in our economy. And I think that is one strategy that we can seriously take a look at, looking at the quantity of waste, the types of waste that we generate, and how we can actually employ these to the benefit of the country.
Okay, so we know the target for renewables is some way down the road. However, access to lithium batteries and other technology is still posing issues for small island states. Any suggestions on how the use of solar and wind energy could be more sustainable?
Yes, I think, well, solar and wind are excellent options for renewable energy. However, they are singular in terms of the impact, in terms of they generate energy. But outside of that, we have in Barbados and throughout the Caribbean, especially small island developing states, polycrisis situations, which just means that you have several things that need fixing. And so therefore, whenever you are spending the money, you have to ensure that when you do spend it, that it really targets as many of those problems as possible. And so in terms of the other renewable energies such as solar and wind, you can also on the back end generate waste as well, which you have to then plan for effectively. So this is not to say don't do solar or don't do wind, but ensure that you have a concomitant plan, the plan for the waste when the batteries, they go dead and you can no longer use them, they become waste. And so therefore you have to effectively have systems in place that can deal with the waste that is generated.
Okay, so what are the areas of resilience should we be concentrating on?
Well, one thing at the university that we are looking at is what I mentioned before in terms of how can we look at the waste streams within Barbados. For instance, we have sewage and wastewater. These are two major types of waste, and we know in 2018 that was at the peak of when it was really problematic. And it comes to years of neglect or not targeting it with the type of economic support that it would have warranted based on the tourism activity that we generated. So we want to see how we can connect in terms of sewage, in terms of waste, in terms of green waste, and also sargassum seaweed when we do have influxes, and incorporate that into a mix so that you have a blended energy mix on the island. And at the same time, you're also tackling these really wicked problems of waste, of pollution, of air, of water, and also the negative impacts on human health.
And how do you think we as citizens can take better care of the environment to create that balance and assist with climate change?
Well, I think in terms of the approach to climate change, it was Sir Richard Branson who mentioned that, climate change is not a problem solely for governments. This will take the community. This will take the business, especially the private sector, to get on board. These are all part of the sustainability thrust that you need nationally. And this feeds into the whole climate change adaptation and climate change mitigation efforts that you will have nationally. Okay. Because this problem impacts every single. Yeah. And we all do contribute to it. And so therefore we need to take responsibility in whichever avenue or sphere of life that we have to see how we can do that. But that will come with risk communication, education, and awareness.
Okay, thank you so much for speaking with us, Dr. Douglas.
Thank you too.
That was Dr. Kirk Douglas, Director for the Center for Biosecurity Studies at UW Cave Hill. Concern about an increase in violence in schools, that story and more when we return. The Barbados Union of Teachers is worried about the safety of teachers in schools, and President Rudy Lovell is asking the Ministry of Education to do more to address the problem as teachers are afraid. Mr. Lovell is also telling parents they need to play their part and check their children's bags. His comments follow an incident at the Deighton Griffith School today. Classes at the Christchurch institution had to be cancelled abruptly. Officers from the Barbados Police Service were quickly on the scene. Several parents also gathered outside to collect their children.
Violence is increasing in our schools, and teachers are fearful It is time for action to address this serious problem. Students are leaving home for school with scissors and knives instead of textbooks, pens, and pencils. Parents must check their children's bags before they leave home in the mornings. Furthermore, parents should beseech their children to follow the right path. Students need to be taught how to employ effective anger and conflict resolution strategies.
Meanwhile, officials at Deighton Griffith Secondary say there is no stabbing nor shooting on the school compound today, despite social media reports. Principal Major Michael Boyce told CBC News they were alerted that someone was impersonating a student on the school compound. He says police were called in to apprehend the individual.
The individual later jumped the school fence and left the compound, but the police arrived at the school to take a statement on the incident. While the police were present, an incident broke out between two students. School officials also quickly responded to this situation and shut it down. Additionally, a student experienced a panic episode. The student's parent was contacted and the ambulance called. We are happy to report that this student is now at home and resting.
The Barbados Police Service is asking the public to help them find 3 men wanted in connection with serious criminal matters. One of them is 28-year-old David Tennille Nathaniel Lynch, alias Dede or Black Fox, whose last known address is Rogers Road at the IV St. Michael. He's 5 feet 10 inches tall, dark and slim. Police are also searching for 35-year-old Ian Aline Farrell, alias Cheese, whose last known address is Church Village, St. Philip. He's 6 feet 1 inch tall, brown complexion and slim. The Barbados Police Service is also asking for the public's assistance in locating 32-year-old Kimar Mario da Costa Green. His last address is listed as Applewitz No. 1, St. George. He's 5 feet 8 inches tall, dark and slim, and has the word outlaw tattooed on his right forearm. Lynch is advised he can present himself to the Hastings Worthing Station, accompanied by an attorney at law of his choice, while the other 2 can report to the District E police station. Anyone who may know the whereabouts of these men can also contact the nearest police station. With work continuing on a new constitution for Barbados, members of Parliament in Barbados have been told they have a critical role to play. The message has come from head of the International Institute for Democracy and Electoral Assistance Constitutional Building Program, Sumit Bisaria. He admits developing a new constitution is no easy feat, noting it's an important moment for the country. Mr. Bisaria, who has worked with countries including South Sudan and Ukraine, has met with Constitution Reform Commission on Island. He was a guest on CBC TV8's Morning Barbados.
The CRC will make its recommendations, and those recommendations will go to the government. And then in order for any of those recommendations to pass, the government must put an amendment bill before the Parliament, and it must pass by 2/3 majority in both houses. So at the end of the day, the political representatives will have a very important, decisive role, one might say, at the end of the process.
New Republic, Mr. Bisaria says Barbadians must have a say on what the country should look like going forward. He says some countries have taken climate change into account in their constitutions.
Climate change is kind of a classic problem for constitutions because climate change involves short-term costs for long-term gain. So it doesn't really go along with the incentives of electoral dynamics where governments are more concerned with getting re-elected in the short term. So we're seeing a lot of constitutions look at what they can do to regulate the government and the state's power to mitigate the worst effects of climate change.
Mr. Bisaria is on island for a public lecture organized by the Constitution Reform Commission to be held at the University of the West Indies. The city of Bridgetown has started to come alive at night during the Yuletide season and is expected to get much brighter with a special Christmas presentation by the Royal Commonwealth Society Barbados branch, and it involves lots of trees. Using solar-powered lighting, the trees will be floating on bamboo rafts from the Chamberlain Bridge up to the river at the rear of the Queen Elizabeth Hospital. The theme this year is Christmas in the Square, and it presents Christmas of Lights. Chairman of the committee for the project, Cheryl Bell, told CBC News the school children have not been participating this year because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Instead, this year's trees have been prepared by the Barbados Coast Guard and the Youth Advance Corps. The Coast Guard made the bamboo rafts, which will float along the inner basin of the careenage, while the Youth Advance Corps did the decorating. Ms. Bell says the project has been ongoing since 2014 and people will get to see the lights on the water from tomorrow at dusk as well as in the fountains at Independence Square. Barbados choirs are returning to the stage for the recitals this season to spread joy and lift spirits as the island recovers from the pandemic. Sherwood McCaskey has that story.
One such choir is the Sicilian Chorale, an offshoot of Doris Provincial's highly acclaimed Sicilian singers. They will present their first post-COVID recital at the St. Paul's Anglican Church on Bay Street, Sunday, December the 11th at 6 p.m. We witnessed the chorale's grand rehearsal session. Chair of the chorale's executive, Sharon Lynch, on what we could expect on Sunday.
We have some of course, some classical type music, but then things like December Child, Do You Hear What I Hear, Slumber Infant Jesus, which we are accustomed to singing.
And mindful of our ancestry and geographical location, the chorale is expected to perform
some Caribbean pieces, which I know persons will enjoy as well. And of course, a Sicilian concert will not be a Sicilian concert without the Bajan Carol. So I hope to see as many persons as possible out at St. Paul's Church on Sunday.
Sherwood McCaskey, CBC News.
The director of the Barbados National Youth Symphony Orchestra, Joy Knight, is celebrating 25 years of association with that orchestra with a concert this weekend at the Frank Hollomer Hall. In conjunction with the Rotary Club of Barbados South, Ms. Knight and her young musicians will perform Ode to Joy.
We have about 140 young members taking part in this concert. There are 3 different levels of orchestra that we have. We have the Barbados Junior Orchestra, and there we have children as young as 5 taking part. We have the Barbados National Youth Symphony Orchestra, and they come in at a more advanced stage. And then we have the seniors, the advanced arm of the orchestra. So we're showcasing the youngsters.
Speaking on CBC's Morning Barbados, Ms. Knight gave a sneak peek into Saturday's 7 p.m. concert.
We do play a variety of music, a variety of genres. So they're not only going to hear classical, they're going to hear some pop, they're going to hear some Caribbean music. I'm going to be showcasing some young soloists as well. So we have a French horn player. He's in the police band, and he's very good. So we're going to showcase him. We're going to showcase young Winnie Trey Harper on saxophone, doing a Rihanna song. And we're also going to showcase young Naya Sylvester. She's only 10 years old.
The COVID-19 period has created an environment for the growth of new businesses, among them plant nurseries, like this one called Green Ideas. Manager Carl Sargent tells the Business Report he has been in gardening for a number of years, but the development of the West Terrace-based operation has been very encouraging.
Green Ideas is an idea that was born during the entire COVID lockdown experience. And one of the things that we had to do is we had to find ways to fill the time. So what we ended up doing was starting a plant nursery. I had an interest in gardening for a number of years, but I didn't think that it would grow to the level that it has grown to. But now we offer all kinds of indoor and outdoor plants for all kinds of enthusiasts at every level.
As Barbadians prepare for Christmas, the horticulturalist has some advice for the Yuletide season.
Now is the time to make around you look lovely. And that's exactly what those plants do. They don't only offer the visual aspect of it, it's very calming, it's a nice relaxing hobby. When you are stressed this Christmas, go out and just go into your garden, take some time and just relax. That's what we used to do back in the day. I had all this preparation and you just need to take a break.
A call is being issued for discoveries of compounds and innovations from Barbados' plants. Export Barbados' newest challenge is encouraging local scientists, innovators, entrepreneurs, and ordinary citizens to submit entries that explore the beneficial, therapeutic, and medicinal properties of local plants. It's called the Photo Innovation Challenge, unearthing the hidden secrets of Barbados' plants, and is focused on developing unique wealth and wellness products that promote healthy aging or well-aging and or address non-communicable diseases. The challenge encourages interested individuals to identify existing and new compounds which can be used in products or used to develop new products. Those who are interested can submit their entries outlining their discovery, including the need it addresses or the problem it solves, the key plant or plants used, the active compound or ingredient, and the global market demand for the discovery or if it is commercially viable. Successful applicants will participate in the 6-month improvement and enhancement phase. Okay, time for the second half in sports, and we go back to Sean. It's a big story in netball.
Yes, Shane, there has been a change of the guard in the leadership of the Barbados Netball Association. Now, following the association's annual general meeting last night, Dr. Carmita Duglin was voted in as the new president, with Carl Alf Padmore voted in as the vice president. Duglin replaces Nisha Craigwell, who held the position over the past 5 years. The secretary, Alicia Gemot, ran unopposed, and so too did the treasurer, Kathy Jones. The new assistant secretary-treasurer is Tara Giddens, with Carlos Lovell and Cameron Greenidge, the other directors. In news of basketball, the Barbados Community College Erie Eagles are the winners of the National Sports Council's Schools Under-19 basketball competition. Now, last night at the Wildy Gym, they defeated the St. Michael School Cougars in a keenly contested final. The SMS cheerleaders in the background calling on defense. That shot is no good for Anton Winters, leaving him in the cold. Fast break going the other direction. Aaron Messiah getting on the receiving end and collecting an easy 2. Caleb Gaskin muscling his way through the entire BCC team in one goal, finding his teammate Noah DePaul just kissing the glass for 2 more for SMS. Joshua Harvey driving hard in the paint, meets a 3-man defense and dishes back to Messiah, and he delivers. It wasn't a pastry shot, but there was something sweet about this turnover, at least for BCC. That's Harvey all alone, laying up for 2 more of his game-high 21 points. Another steal, and this time they find Harvey again, laying up for 2 and attracting the foul. SMS in a bind because they were falling behind. Zishon Motara from just beyond the arc nails the jumper for 3 of his 17 points. BCC having some issues with the SMS defense. They were all over this guy till eventually the ball gets free, and the long pass into the arms of Messiah, laying up for 2 more of his 14. After finishing the first half, leading 38-30, the Erie Eagles were really starting to fly. Winters bringing the heat with this slam. Not so easy to score here. In fact, SMS, they get the ball back. Gaskin sends it downtown to Messiah, and as easy as you like, tipping it in for 2 more. Very late in the game with BCC leading by 11. And SMS looking for every and any opportunity to score. Not quite sure what's going on here. The Cougar caged in and the ball repossessed, allowing BCC to run away with another 2 points. And by the time young Motara sent up this shot, the game was practically over already with the clock ticking down. Scott Wharton holding on to this one very tight. BCC coming away as victors in this competition, winning 80-67. Meanwhile, in the third players playoff, Harrison College defeated Queens College 79-61. Naib Brown top scored for College with 24 points, while Zachary Hines had a game-high 35 for QC.
That's our news. Good night and be good. Thanks for visiting us. To get more stories like this one, like and subscribe to our YouTube channel.